My name is Diana, and my family tried to steal everything I built. On my sister's wedding day, my parents pulled me aside and demanded I hand over my $5 million home. What they didn't know, I had already started planning my revenge. My name is Diana, Diana Mitchell, and I'm about to tell you a story that will make you question everything you thought you knew about family, love, and the price of forgiveness. I remember the exact moment my life shattered into a million pieces. It was June 15th, and the summer sun was painting everything in shades of gold and honey. My sister Emily's wedding day, the day that was supposed to be the happiest celebration of love and family unity. Instead, it became the stage for the most devastating betrayal I could never have imagined. Let me take you back to the beginning. I grew up in a small town called Oakhaven, about 2 hours outside of Chicago. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business, where the church bells rang on Sunday mornings, and where families stayed together through thick and thin. At least, that's what I believed. My parents, Robert and Margaret Mitchell, were respected members of our community. My father worked as a high school principal, and my mother ran a small floral shop downtown. From the outside, we looked like the perfect American family. But behind closed doors, the Mitchell household was governed by a simple, cruel rule. Emily was the golden child, and I was the one who could never quite measure up. I was 2 years older than Emily, but you would never know it from the way my parents treated us. Emily had their eyes, their easy smile, their charm. She could do no wrong. When she brought home a B on a report card, they celebrated. When I brought home an A, they asked why it wasn't an A+. I learned early on that my worth in their eyes was measured by what I could do for them, not who I was. And I spent my entire childhood trying to earn their love. When I was 18, I left Oakhaven for Chicago. I had a dream of becoming an architect, of building something beautiful and lasting. My parents scoffed at the idea. Architecture is a man's world, my mother said. You should find something more practical, like teaching or nursing. But I was stubborn. I had always been stubborn. It was the only thing I had inherited from my father's side of the family. I worked 3 jobs while attending college. I waited tables, cleaned offices at night, and tutored students in mathematics. Every penny I earned went toward my education. I lived in a tiny studio apartment that was barely more than a closet, ate ramen noodles for dinner more nights than I care to remember, and studied until my eyes burned. But I did it. I graduated with honors. I got my architecture license, and then I started building my reputation. The first few years were brutal. I worked for firms that didn't respect women, that paid me less than my male colleagues, that took credit for my ideas. I was told I was too ambitious, too aggressive, too emotional. I learned to be tougher than any of them. I learned to speak their language, to fight for my place at the table. By the time I was 28, I had saved enough money to start my own firm. Mitchell Design and Build. Small, but growing. I specialized in affordable housing, creating beautiful, sustainable homes for families who couldn't afford the luxury developments that were popping up all over the city. I was proud of what I was building. Not just my company, but my life. I had a small but loyal circle of friends, a cozy apartment in Lincoln Park, and a sense of purpose that filled the empty spaces where my family's love should have been. And then my sister called. Emily had gotten engaged to a man named Daniel, a high school sweetheart she'd reconnected with at a reunion. The wedding was set for June, and my mother, of course, wanted to plan everything. "Diana, you need to come home for the engagement party," my mother said on the phone. Her voice was warm, but I'd learned to recognize the steel underneath. "You're the maid of honor, after all." A small part of me was surprised they'd asked me, but a larger, more desperate part of me was hopeful. Maybe this was their way of reaching out. Maybe they finally wanted to build a relationship with me. I was a fool. 2 years before Emily's wedding, I had accomplished something that I was incredibly proud of. I had designed and built my first home entirely on my own, not for a client, but for myself. It was a modest house, located in a quiet suburb of Chicago called Willow Creek. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, an open-concept living area, and a beautiful garden in the back. I had poured my heart and soul into every detail. from the reclaimed wood floors to the floor-to-ceiling windows that let in the morning light. The construction had taken 18 months. I'd spent every weekend on site, my hands calloused from handling materials, my clothes covered in sawdust. I'd negotiated with contractors, argued with inspectors, and sat in my car during breaks eating cold sandwiches while I reviewed blueprints. When the house was finally finished, I walked through it for the first time as a completed home. I stood in the living room, looking out at the garden I'd planted myself, and I cried. It wasn't just a house. It was everything I'd worked for. It was proof that I could create something beautiful and lasting from nothing. My parents had never come to see it. They lived 2 hours away, but they always had an excuse. Your mother's tired. The shop is busy. We'll come next month. Next month turned into next year, and eventually I stopped asking. Emily came once with Daniel. She walked through the house with a polite smile, making the right noises of appreciation. But I could see the calculation in her eyes. It was the same look my mother had when she was measuring something up. "It's nice, Diana," she said. "Very you." That should have been my warning sign. But I wanted so badly for my family to be proud of me that I refused to see the truth. When my mother called about the engagement party, I said yes without hesitation. Yes, I would plan everything. Yes, I would use my contacts to get the best deals. Yes, I would help with the wedding arrangements. "Deanna, that's wonderful," my mother said, and her voice was almost warm. "Your father and I are so glad you're doing this. Family should stick together." That phrase, family should stick together, I would hear it repeated so many times in the coming months that it would make me physically ill. I planned the engagement party at a beautiful venue in Oakhaven, using my own money for the deposit. I arranged for the flowers, the catering, the music. I even bought a new dress, a deep emerald green that brought out the color of my eyes. The party was a success. Everyone in town came, praising the decorations, the food, the arrangements. My mother smiled and accepted the compliments as if she'd done everything herself. My father clinked his glass and made a toast that didn't mention me once. And Emily, my beautiful sister in her white dress, sat on Daniel's arm like she was already the queen of a kingdom I wasn't welcome in. "I'm so glad you're here, Dee," she said, using the childhood nickname I'd always hated. "It wouldn't have been the same without you." I thought she meant it, I really did. In the months that followed, I threw myself into wedding planning. I designed the invitations, negotiated with the florist, found the perfect caterer. I did everything my mother asked, and I did it without complaint. It became my way of being part of the family again. If I couldn't have their love, at least I could have their appreciation. At least I could be useful. Emily and Daniel came to Chicago a few times to discuss arrangements. They always ended up at my house. Emily would walk through the rooms with a new kind of interest, asking questions about the construction, the design, the cost. "Your mother told me you built this yourself," Daniel said one afternoon. "That's impressive." "It was a lot of work," I said, "but it was worth it." "The real estate market is crazy right now," Emily said casually. "Homes like this are worth a fortune." "It's not for sale," I said, but I laughed. "I built it for me, it's my home." Emily smiled that calculating smile. "Of course, it's beautiful." The morning of June 15th, I woke up in my house in Willow Creek with a feeling of nervous anticipation. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. I made myself a cup of coffee and stood in my garden, watching the flowers bloom in the morning light. Today was supposed to be a celebration. I had done everything I was asked. I had planned the perfect wedding. I had bought the perfect gift. I had written a maid of honor speech that I hoped would make Emily cry with joy. I drove to Oakhaven in my own car, a modest sedan that I'd bought used 3 years ago. I could have afforded something better, but I'd always been careful with money. I'd learned the hard way that no one was going to take care of me except myself. The wedding was at a beautiful historic church downtown, followed by a reception at the local country club. Everything was perfect. The flowers were exactly what Emily wanted, the decorations were elegant, the cake was a masterpiece. I helped Emily get ready, zipping up her dress and arranging her veil. She was glowing with happiness, and for a moment, I felt a genuine sense of joy for her. "You look beautiful," I said. "Daniel is a lucky man." "Thank you, Dee," she said, and her smile was warm. "I'm so glad you're here. I don't know what I would have done without you." Those words would echo in my head for years to come, but with a very different meaning. The ceremony was beautiful. I stood at the altar, watching my sister marry the man she loved. My parents sat in the front row, my mother dabbing at her eyes with a lace handkerchief, my father looking proud and paternal. The perfect family portrait. The reception was in full swing when my mother pulled me aside. The band was playing, people were dancing, and the champagne was flowing freely. But my mother's face had a serious expression that made my stomach clench. "Diana, your father and I need to speak with you, privately." "Of course," I said, following her to a small room off the main hall. My father was already there, pacing back and forth. The room was decorated with old photographs of the club's founding members, their stern faces watching me from the walls. The air smelled like stale cigar smoke and old money. "What's going on?" I asked. "Is everything okay?" My mother closed the door behind us. "Sit down, Diana." I sat, my heart already starting to race. Something was wrong. I could feel it in the air, like static electricity before a storm. "We've been talking," my mother began. "Your father and I, about what's best for this family." "I don't understand," I said. "Is something wrong? Is it Daniel? Is Emily okay?" "Emily is fine," my father said, his voice gruff. "We're talking about you." "Me?" "We've been thinking about your house," my mother said. "The one in Willow Creek." My blood went cold. "What about it?" "We want you to give it to us," she said, as simply as if she were asking me to pass the salt. For a moment, I couldn't speak. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline, the smile that would indicate this was a joke. "It's not a joke," my father said, reading my expression. "We've looked into the market value. Your house is currently worth somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 million. We want you to sign it over to us, to the family." "Give it to you," I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. "Why? What do you need my house for?" "Your mother and I are getting older," my father said. "We need to think about our retirement. That house of yours, it's perfect for us. It's a good location, it's close to the city. We could sell our place and move in." "But it's my house," I said. "I built it. I worked for years to afford it. Every single brick, every nail, I worked for that house." "We know you did," my mother said, and her voice was soothing, placating. "And we're so proud of you. But family comes first, Diana. It's always been about family." "You have a house," I said, my voice starting to shake. "You have your own home. Why do you need mine?" "Your father's pension isn't what we thought it would be," my mother said. "And with Emily's wedding expenses, we're struggling. Your house, it would be a lifeline for us. It's the best way to take care of the family." "What about me?" I asked. "What am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to live?" "You're young," my father said dismissively. "You can start over. You have your career, you make good money, you don't need a house like that. It's wasted on a single woman living alone." Something inside me snapped. After years of being the family's servant, the errand girl, the one who was always available to fix everyone else's problems, something broke. "Wasted on me?" I repeated, my voice rising. "I built that house with my own 2 hands. I sacrificed everything to build that house. Every night I spent working instead of sleeping. Every weekend I spent on construction sites instead of relaxing. That house is not wasted on me. That house is mine." "Don't raise your voice at me," my father said, his face reddening. "We are your parents. We raised you, we fed you, we gave you everything. The least you can do is give something back." "I've given you everything," I shouted. "Everything you've ever asked for. The engagement party, the wedding planning, the money I've given you over the years. When has anyone ever given me anything?" "You're being selfish," my mother said, her eyes narrowing. "Emily would never act like this. She's always been the one who puts family first." "There it is," I said, and I was laughing now, a bitter, hollow sound. "There it is. Emily is perfect, Emily is wonderful, Emily would never disappoint you. And I'm just the spare, the one who wasn't good enough, the one who could never measure up." "Diana, that's not true." "It is true," I said, cutting my mother off. "You never wanted me. You wanted Emily. You've always wanted Emily. And now you want to take the only thing I've ever built for myself. We're not taking it, my father said, his voice hard. We're asking you to give it to us, for the good of this family. No, I said, and I was standing now, my hands shaking. No, I'm not going to give you my house. I'm not going to give you anything else. I'm done. You can't just walk away from your family, my mother said, her voice rising. Family is everything. Family comes first. Family comes first, I repeated. That's what you said, and you're right, my family is me, I'm my own family now, and I come first. I turned and walked out of the room, my heart pounding in my chest. The music was still playing, the guests were still dancing, the champagne was still flowing. Everyone was having the time of their lives, completely unaware of the war that had just been declared. I walked through the reception, looking at the faces of people I'd known my entire life. People who had watched me grow up, who had come to my recitals and my graduations. People who would take my parents' side in a heartbeat. Emily was at the head table, laughing with Daniel and her bridesmaids. She looked so happy, so beautiful, so oblivious. A sudden, terrible suspicion flashed through my mind. I walked over to her, forcing a smile onto my face. Emily, can I talk to you for a moment? Of course, Dee, she said, all warmth and smiles. Is everything okay? Everything's fine, I said. I just need to ask you something. We walked to a quiet corner of the room, away from the noise of the band and the chatter of the guests. Emily, I said, my voice low, did you know about Mom and Dad asking for my house? Her expression flickered, just for a second, but I saw it, the guilt, the calculation, the knowledge. They mentioned something, she said carefully, but I didn't think they would actually ask you, not today. Not today, I repeated, so you think it would be okay to ask me some other day? Diana, it's not what you think. Then what is it? I demanded. What is it, Emily? Why does everyone in this family feel entitled to take from me? Because you have so much, she said, and her voice was pleading. You're so successful, you have this wonderful career, you built this amazing house, and Mom and Dad, they're struggling. They gave us everything when we were growing up. They gave you everything, I said. Not me, don't you get that? Everything they had went to you, your piano lessons, your horseback riding, your ballet classes. And when I wanted to go to college, they told me to find my own way. I did. I found my own way, and now they want what I found. Diana, please. I'm going to leave now, I said. I'm going to go home, and I'm going to think about what kind of family I really want to be a part of. I walked away from the reception, out of the country club, into the cool June evening. The sky was turning dark, the first stars beginning to appear. I walked to my car and sat there for a long time, not starting the engine, just staring at the empty parking lot. I thought about all the years of my childhood, the way my parents had always favored Emily, the way I'd been told I was too much, too loud, too ambitious, the way I'd been made to feel like I was a burden, a problem to be solved rather than a child to be loved. I thought about all the years of my adulthood, the way I'd still tried to earn their love, the money I'd given them, the favors I'd done for them, the way I'd always been available to help, and the way they'd never thanked me, never acknowledged me, never treated me like I was worthy of anything more than being useful. And I thought about my house, the house I'd built with my own hands, the house that represented everything I'd overcome, everything I'd accomplished, the one thing in my life that was truly mine. They wanted to take it from me. They wanted to take the only thing I had ever built for myself and give it to themselves, because they thought they deserved it more than I did. I started the car and drove home to Willow Creek. The drive took 2 hours, but I didn't notice the time. I was too lost in my thoughts, replaying every conversation, every moment, every betrayal. When I finally pulled into my driveway, I looked at my house, my beautiful house. The lights were off, but the moonlight revealed every detail. The porch I'd designed with the swing, the garden I'd planted, the windows I'd chosen to catch the morning light. This was mine. This was proof that I could build something beautiful from nothing. This was my home, and I would never let them take it from me. The next morning, I woke up feeling hollow. The events of the previous day replayed in my mind like a horror film. The demands, the accusations, the betrayal. My phone was filled with messages, my mother demanding I call her, my father calling me selfish, Emily sending increasingly frantic texts, trying to play peacemaker. I turned off my phone. I couldn't handle them. Not yet, not until I knew what I was going to do. I spent the next week in a fog. I went to work, I met with clients, I pretended everything was normal. But at night, alone in my house, I would sit in the dark and think about my family. The anger had faded, replaced by something worse. Grief. I was grieving the family I thought I had, the parents who I'd always hoped would love me, the sister who I'd always wanted to be close to, the dream of a family that would finally accept me as I was. I hadn't called them. I hadn't responded to any of their messages. It was the first time in my life that I had gone no contact with my family, and I felt guilty about it even as I knew it was the right thing to do. But then, 2 weeks after the wedding, I got a letter in the mail. It was from my father. The handwriting was formal and cold. Diana, we have been trying to reach you for 2 weeks. It is unacceptable that you are ignoring your family. We want to give you one more opportunity to do the right thing and sign over the house. If you do not, we will be forced to take legal action. We are your parents, and we have always done what is best for this family. Your refusal to help us in our time of need is a reflection of your selfishness and your lack of family values. Emily is ashamed of you. We are ashamed of you. We have spoken to a lawyer, and we have been advised that we have a case. You owe us. You owe us for everything we gave you. You owe us for raising you, feeding you, clothing you. If you don't give us the house willingly, we will take it from you. This is your last chance. Your father. I read the letter 3 times, my hands trembling. They were threatening to sue me. My own parents were threatening to take me to court for a house that I had built with my own money, my own sweat, my own blood. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to call them and ask them how they could do this to me. But I didn't. I sat down with a pad of paper and started taking notes. The first thing I did was contact my lawyer. Her name was Sarah Chen, and she had been my legal counsel for my business for years. She was sharp, compassionate, and she had seen me through more than a few difficult situations. When I walked into her office and told her what was happening, her jaw literally dropped. They want you to give them your house, she asked, her voice disbelieving. And they're threatening to sue you if you don't. That's what the letter says, I said, handing it over. I don't understand. How can they possibly have a case? It's my house. I built it with my own money. Sarah read the letter carefully, her brow furrowed. This is ridiculous. They don't have any grounds for a lawsuit. They can't just claim ownership of your property because they're your parents. But they're threatening. It's a scare tactic, Sarah said. They're hoping you'll be so afraid of the legal battle that you'll just give in. They know they don't have a real case. I breathed a sigh of relief, but it was short-lived. What should I do? First, I'm going to write them a letter, Sarah said. I'll make it clear that there's no legal basis for their claim. I'll also tell them that any further communication should go through me. But that's just going to make them angrier, I said. They're going to hate me even more. Diana, listen to me, Sarah said, leaning forward. I've known you for years. You built your company from nothing. You worked your way through college. You've never taken anything from anyone. Why would you start now? I nodded slowly. She was right. I had worked too hard to get where I was to let my family take it all away. I also want you to gather evidence, Sarah continued. Everything you have about the house. The deed, the mortgage documents, the construction permits. I want to document your financial independence from your parents. Show me every payment you've made, every investment in that property. I have everything, I said. I keep all my records. Good, Sarah said. And Diana, I also want you to think about one more thing. What? The emotional side of this. I can tell you're struggling with what your family is doing. I want you to consider seeing a therapist. This is a massive betrayal, and you're going to need help processing it. I was skeptical, but I agreed to at least think about it. Over the next few weeks, I gathered all the evidence Sarah had requested. I found the original purchase documents for the land, the contracts with the construction company, the bank statements showing every payment I'd made. I also started documenting my history with my family, the financial support I'd given them over the years, the way they'd treated me, the clear favoritism toward Emily. As I put all the pieces together, I began to see a pattern I'd never noticed before. My parents had been taking advantage of me for years. Every favor I'd done for them, every loan I'd given them, every time they'd asked for money or help, they'd made me feel guilty for not giving more. And Emily had always been part of the arrangement. She was the one who would tell me to be understanding, to be grateful, to not hold grudges. She was the one who would make me feel like I was being unreasonable when I wanted to set boundaries. I realized with a sick feeling that Emily had been manipulating me for years. She had been my parents' accomplice, always pushing me to be more accommodating, more generous, more forgiving. And now they wanted to take my house. I stopped answering my parents' calls. I stopped reading their letters. I stopped checking the messages they left on my voicemail. It was hard, so hard. Every day I felt the pull of guilt, the old programming telling me that I was a bad daughter, a selfish person, a disappointment. But I fought it. I reminded myself of everything they'd done. I reminded myself that I didn't owe them anything. And then something happened that changed everything. I got a call from my mother. It was the first time she'd called me directly in weeks, and I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up the phone. "Diana, I need you to come home," she said. Her voice was flat, lifeless. "It's your father. He's had a heart attack." My first thought was that this was a trick, a manipulation designed to get me to come back. But something in my mother's voice was different. There was no steel, no manipulation, just exhaustion and grief. "Is he okay?" I asked. "He's in the hospital," my mother said. "He's stable, but they're not sure. He's not young anymore, Diana. The doctors said the stress, it was a major factor. His blood pressure, it's been dangerously high for months." "Stress from what?" I asked. My mother was silent for a long moment. "From everything, the wedding, the house, the argument with you. He never expected you to say no. He thought you would understand." "Understand what?" I asked, my voice rising. "Understand that you wanted to take my home, understand that you were threatening to sue me." "He was only trying to protect this family," my mother said. "Can't you see that? He loves you, Diana. We all love you." "No," I said. "That's not how this works. You don't threaten to sue someone you love. You don't try to take their home away. You don't make them feel worthless for their entire lives and then tell them it's for their own good." "I'm not going to argue with you," my mother said. "I'm just asking you to come see your father, in the hospital, before it's too late." She hung up before I could respond. I sat in my living room, staring at the phone in my hand. Part of me wanted to go. Part of me wanted to prove that I was the better person, that I was capable of forgiveness. But another part of me, a new part that had been growing stronger every day, said no. They didn't deserve my forgiveness. They didn't deserve my presence at their bedside. They had threatened me, manipulated me, tried to take everything from me. And now they wanted me to come running back because of a health scare. I called my therapist. Her name was Dr. Patricia Morrison, and she'd been helping me work through these family issues for months. "Patricia, I need to talk to you." "Of course, Diana, what's going on?" I told her about the phone call, about my mother's request, about the guilt I was feeling. "So what are you thinking?" Patricia asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to go, to prove I'm the better person, but another part of me is furious. They threatened to sue me, and now they expect me to just forget about it." "Your feelings are valid," Patricia said. "There is no right or wrong answer here. The question is, what do you need? What does Diana need right now?" "I need to protect myself," I said slowly. "I need to do what's right for me." "Then, what is the right thing for you?" I thought about it for a long moment. I don't think I should go to the hospital, not because I'm trying to hurt them, but because I'm trying to protect myself. They've already tried to take everything from me. If I go, they'll expect me to forgive everything, and I'm not ready for that. And if something happens to your father, if you never get the chance to say goodbye? I swallowed hard. That's a risk I'll have to take. A few days later, I heard from my Aunt Margaret, my father's sister. She and I had always had a warm relationship, and she was one of the few family members who had never treated me like a second-class citizen. "Diana, I wanted to check on you," she said. I know things are complicated right now. Complicated is one word for it, I said. How is my father? He's recovering, Margaret said. He's going to be fine, but it was a wake-up call. He needs to manage his stress better. I'm sure I'm a big source of his stress, I said. I won't sugarcoat it, Margaret said. Your parents are upset. But Diana, I want you to know something. You were right to stand up for yourself. I was shocked, really. Yes, she said. Your mother and father have always favored Emily. It's not right. And what they're asking you to do, giving them your house, that's not right either. I told them that. They didn't want to hear it, but I told them. Thank you, I said, and I felt tears pricking at my eyes. That means more than you know. I also want you to know something else, Margaret continued. Your parents are in trouble financially. Your father's pension was mismanaged, and they're facing a lot of debt. That's the real reason they wanted your house. They were desperate. I understand being desperate, I said, but that doesn't make it okay. No, it doesn't, Margaret agreed. And what they're asking of you, it's not right, but I thought you should know the full picture. I thanked her again and hung up. The full picture. I'd been given pieces of the picture my entire life, but I was finally starting to see the whole thing. My parents had made bad decisions with their money. They'd spent beyond their means, trying to keep up appearances, trying to give Emily everything she wanted. And now they were in trouble. They wanted my house because it was the easiest solution to their problems. But they didn't care about what it would cost me. 3 months had passed since the wedding. My parents had stopped contacting me, and I'd stopped contacting them. Emily had sent a few emails, trying to get me to reconcile, but I'd stopped reading them after the first one. I was building a new life. I was working more hours, building my business. I started going to a book club, joined a hiking group, made new friends. For the first time in my life, I was doing things for myself. But part of me was still angry, still hurt, still grieving. So I decided to do something about it. I went to see my lawyer again. Sarah, I need to do something that's going to sound petty and vindictive, but I need to do it for my own closure. Tell me what you're thinking. Wedding gifts. My parents and my sister, I bought them expensive gifts for the wedding. I know it's petty to take them back, but I want to. You could sell them, Sarah suggested, or you could donate them. You could just replace them with something cheaper. The gift I bought for my parents was a trip to Hawaii, I said. I don't want them to have that. I want to cancel it and get my money back. That's probably easiest, Sarah said. You should be able to cancel the booking and get a refund. As for your sister, what did you buy her? An expensive piece of jewelry, I said. It has sentimental value. Then I'd recommend going to the jeweler and seeing if you can return it. I canceled the trip to Hawaii that afternoon. The travel agency was accommodating, and I got a full refund. Then I went to the jeweler and returned the necklace I'd bought for Emily. I'd chosen it specially, a necklace with a small diamond pendant. It cost almost $6,000. The jeweler didn't ask questions. They gave me my money back. It was a small victory, but it felt good. It was the first step in reclaiming my life from my family. I also started thinking about what I really wanted. For years, I'd been defined by my role in my family. The dutiful daughter, the supportive sister, I'd let them define me, control me, take from me. Now I was free, and I needed to figure out who I really was. I started seeing a therapist regularly. Dr. Morrison helped me work through the guilt, the anger, the grief. She helped me see that I was not defined by my family. I was defined by my choices, my actions, my values. Your parents have no power over you, she said. The only power they have is the power you give them. Then I'm going to take that power back, I said. A year after the wedding, I got another letter from my father. It was different from the others. It was short, handwritten, and there was a check enclosed. Diana, I'm not good at this. I'm not good at words or apologies, but I've had a lot of time to think, and I want to say I'm sorry. What we did was wrong. I was scared and desperate, and I took it out on you. I threatened you, tried to force you to give up everything. That wasn't right. That wasn't fair. I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I'm just asking you to know that I'm ashamed of what I did. You deserved better from us. The check is what we owe you. The money you gave us over the years. I know it's not enough, but it's a start. If you ever want to talk, I'm here, but I understand if you don't. Dad. I stared at the letter for a long time. The check was for $20,000. It was more money than I'd ever seen in one place from my parents. But it was also more than just money. It was proof that they finally understood what they'd done. I sat in my garden, the letter in my hands, and I cried. I cried for all the years of feeling like I wasn't enough. I cried for the little girl who just wanted her parents to love her. I cried for the woman who had built her life from nothing, only to have her family try to tear it down. The next day, I called my father. Hello, his voice was uncertain. He clearly didn't recognize my number. Dad, it's Diana. Diana, he said, and I could hear the tears in his voice. Thank you for calling. I got your letter, I said. Thank you for the apology for the check. I know it's not enough, he said, but I wanted you to know that we're trying. Your mother is in therapy now, we both are. That's good, I said. That's really good. We also filed for bankruptcy, he said. We were in more debt than we ever admitted. The house, we're selling it. We're going to move into a smaller place. It's what we should have done years ago instead of taking it out on you. Dad, I didn't know any of this, I said. I didn't want you to know, he said. I wanted to seem strong, in control, but I wasn't. I was drowning and I took it out on you. You didn't deserve that. Thank you for telling me, I said. I appreciate that. I know you're not ready to forgive, he said. I don't expect you to, but I wanted to say it. I wanted you to know. I was silent for a long moment. Part of me wanted to forgive him, right then and there, to let go of all the pain and anger, but another part of me knew that wasn't possible. Not yet. I need time, I said finally, but thank you for reaching out. It means a lot. I hung up and sat in the silence of my house, the house I'd built, the house I'd saved, the house that proved I was strong enough to survive anything. And for the first time, I felt at peace. Another 6 months passed. Emily had reached out to me several times, but I hadn't responded. Not because I was angry, but because I needed to figure out who I was without my family defining me. Finally, I decided it was time. I was ready to see them again, not because I had forgiven them, but because I needed to reclaim my life. The meeting was at a restaurant in Oakhaven. Neutral ground. I walked in and saw my family sitting at a table. My father looked older, thinner. My mother's hair had more gray than I remembered. And Emily looked the same, but there was something different in her eyes, something softer. They all stood up when they saw me. My father reached out as if to hug me, then stopped himself. Diana, he said, thank you for coming. I nodded and took my seat. The first few minutes were awkward. No one knew what to say. But eventually, the tension started to ease. We've been in therapy, my mother said. We're trying to be better. We're trying to understand what we did. I'm proud of you for that, I said. Deanna, I owe you an apology, Emily said, and her voice was full of emotion. I've been thinking about everything, and I realize now how much I benefited from what happened. I was the favorite. I was the one who got everything, while you got nothing. And I didn't see it. I didn't want to see it, because it was easier to just accept it. I understand, I said. You were just a kid too. But I'm not a kid now, Emily said. I'm an adult and I can see what we did. What I did. I should have stood up for you. I should have told Mom and Dad that what they were doing was wrong. Instead, I just went along with it. It's okay, I said. It's not okay, Emily said, but I want to try. I want to try to be a better sister. I looked at her, and I saw the little sister I'd grown up with, the one who had always looked up to me, the one who had been caught between me and our parents. I want to try too, I said. The rest of the dinner was more relaxed. We talked about work, about life, about the things that had changed. My parents talked about their new apartment, their new routines. And then my father surprised me. Diana, I want to give you something. He pulled a document out of his bag and slid it across the table. It was the deed to a piece of property. Land, in Oakhaven, not far from where they lived. This was my father's land, my father said. He left it to me when he passed. I should have given it to you years ago, but I didn't. I was too wrapped up in my own problems. "What am I supposed to do with this?" I asked. "Build a house," he said. "You're an architect, that's what you do, build something beautiful." I stared at the deed, not sure what to say. This was unexpected. This was more than I'd ever expected. "I don't know what to say," I admitted. "Say you'll come for Christmas," my mother said. "We're starting new traditions, family traditions. We've talked about it and we want to do better. We want to be the family you deserved." I looked at the deed, at my family, at the restaurant around me. The same restaurant where I'd had so many family dinners. The same restaurant where I'd always felt like an outsider. "I'll have to think about it," I said. "That's fine," my father said. "Take your time." I built a new house on my grandfather's land, a small cottage with a garden just like I'd always dreamed. It wasn't as grand as my house in Willow Creek, but it was peaceful. It was home. I started visiting my parents again. Not often, but occasionally. Dinner on a Sunday, a walk in the park. We were still working through the past, but we were trying. That was what mattered. Emily and I started talking more regularly. We had long phone conversations, the kind we should have had years ago. She was making an effort, and I appreciated it. And I started looking at my life differently. I'd spent so many years trying to earn my family's love. I'd worked so hard to prove my worth. But now, I realized that I didn't need to prove anything. I was worthy just by being me. I'd built a successful career, a beautiful home, and a life I loved. I had made myself into the person I'd always wanted to be, and no one could take that away from me. It was July when I went to the new cottage for the first time. The sun was warm, the flowers were blooming, and the bees were buzzing happily. I walked through the rooms, just as I had with the house in Willow Creek, and I felt at peace. My family was still trying. My father was in better health, my mother was less anxious, and Emily was becoming the sister I'd always wanted. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. It was what we had. But there was one thing I had to do before I could fully let go of the past. I bought a new car. A beautiful, sporty convertible, the kind I'd always wanted but never allowed myself to buy. And I drove to the beach. I parked the car and walked to the sand. The sky was clear, the water was blue, and the waves crashed gently on the shore. I had come to a decision. My family had made mistakes. They had hurt me, betrayed me, tried to take everything from me. But I had also made mistakes. I had let them define me, let them control me, let them take from me. It was time to forgive. Not because they deserved it, not because they'd earned it, but because I needed it. I walked along the beach, the warm sand beneath my feet. I thought about the long road that had led me here, the pain and the tears, the anger and the grief. And then I thought about the other side of it, the strength I'd discovered, the purpose I'd found, the home I'd built. I thought about my family and the journey we'd started together. It wasn't perfect. It was messy, complicated, and often painful. But we were trying. We were building something new. I stopped walking and looked out at the horizon. Forgiveness is not about forgetting, I said to no one but myself. It's about letting go of the burden. It's about choosing not to let the past control your future. I closed my eyes and let the salt air wash over me. I forgive them, I said. I forgive myself, and I let go of everything that was holding me back. When I opened my eyes, the world looked different, brighter, full of possibilities. I turned and walked back to my car, ready to start the next chapter of my life. Not just as an architect, not just as a daughter or sister, but as a woman who had finally found the courage to forgive. 6 months later, I started a foundation. The Mitchell Family Foundation, dedicated to helping families in crisis. It wasn't about making money, it was about making a difference. My foundation offered free therapy, financial counseling, and career building for people struggling with family conflict. It was my way of turning the worst thing that had happened to me into something good. My parents attended the foundation's grand opening. My mother cried when she saw the plaque with her family name. My father shook my hand, his eyes misty. "We're proud of you, Diana," he said. "We've always been proud of you, we just forgot to show it." "Thank you, Dad," I said. Emily helped me coordinate the foundation's first gala. Daniel had become a volunteer with the program, teaching financial literacy to young families. It was a good partnership. My house in Willow Creek was renovated. I decided to turn it into a retreat for families going through the kind of crisis I'd experienced. A place where they could find peace, rebuild their lives, and start over. On Christmas Eve, my family gathered at the new cottage. It was cold outside, but inside, the fireplace was roaring and the tree was decorated with all of our old ornaments. We were laughing, we were telling stories. For the first time in all the years we'd been together, we were truly a family. My father stood up and raised his glass. "To Diana," he said, "the strongest person I've ever known, the one who taught us all how to forgive." "To Diana," everyone echoed. I looked around at my family, my beautiful, complicated, messy family, and I smiled. We were still trying, we were still healing, but we were finally learning how to love each other, and that was all that mattered. It's been 3 years since the wedding, and I'm telling you my story for one reason. Because I want you to know that your family doesn't define you. Your past doesn't define you. Your worth is not measured by what others think of you. You can build something from nothing. You can create a home, a life, a family of your own choosing. You can find the courage to forgive and the strength to move forward. I built a house with my hands, but I built my life with my heart. I learned that family is not just blood. It's the people who stand by you when everything falls apart. And I learned that forgiving someone doesn't mean you have to forget. It doesn't mean you have to trust them again. It doesn't mean you have to give up what you've built. Forgiveness is simply letting go of the burden. It's choosing to stop carrying the weight of the past. It's freeing yourself to build the future you deserve. My name is Diana Mitchell, and I'm a survivor, a builder, a fighter. And I am home. Thank you for listening to my story. May you find the courage to build your own home, the strength to protect it, and the wisdom to know who truly deserves a place in your heart.